Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Antony.
And this is Words and Numbers. Brought to you by the fine people at Polyhymnia. Ant, what's new and exciting in your world this week?
Well, I'm surprised, probably for the first time in our work together on this podcast. I was listening to the episode, a couple episodes back, you and I and Clark were recording, and I thought it was a superb episode. And we got a couple of comments saying that it sounded like propaganda. In fact, I'll read this one from Twitter. Today's podcast feels like straight up propaganda. That's the best way to kill something you've spent time building up. And so I respond, well, what about it feels like propaganda? And for whom? Because we were, going after both sides here. And the response comes back, I didn't vote for Trump, but it's really hard to listen to people give the MSNBC TDS talk. I think TDS is Trump derangement syndrome.
Sure, that doesn't answer the question in any way, though.
Yeah, I found it ironic because a large portion of that episode was all three of us saying that people have got to step back from their preconceptions and listen to what each other are saying. And what came at me here is what I've experienced elsewhere, where people hear some of the words that I say and then fill in the rest based on their presumption of what I'm actually thinking or feeling. And so respond to something that I actually never said at all.
But they do respond to what they think they heard.
Yes, they respond to what they think they heard. And somehow people never think they heard something that they would agree with. Somehow they're always thinking that they're hearing something they don't like.
It never works in that direction. Never, ever. But, if that's the worst thing that happened to you all week, somebody said bad words to you on Twitter, well...
I guess you're used to that, right?
Well, yeah, me and everybody else who's ever been on Twitter.
Well, I have to say, in defense of the person, there was no name-calling here. It was a very polite exchange, but I came away wanting. I'm not hearing what it is that the person thought was propaganda.
I'm sure it'll be interesting once we figure it out. I want to talk about Donald Trump again.
All right, go for it.
Well, there was this interesting thing that came out yesterday, for the people who are listening some weeks into the future, where Donald Trump took issue with Walmart after Walmart said they were going to have to start raising prices because of the tariffs. And Trump said, just eat the tariff.
What?
Now, Ant, I could have swore Donald Trump told me that China would pay the tariffs.
Right, exactly.
So now he wants Walmart to pay the tariffs, which is closer, in fact, to what will happen.
Yeah. And I'm just looked up because I'm trying to remember it in my head, and I am remembering correctly. Walmart's net profit margin is 3%.
Tariff is 10%.
Right.
So they can't eat the tariff. Literally can't.
Yeah, and somehow the foreigners were supposed to pay for this, which economists everywhere, and including the two of us, said, no, that's not going to happen. The consumers are going to pay for it.
Yep, that's right. And where we're left right now is that everybody on Trump's side of the aisle, they're all convinced that everything he says is correct. But they never take a second to tell me which part is correct when he contradicts himself. Which happens all the time. Who's going to pay the tariffs? The Chinese will pay. But then why are we leaning on Walmart to pay?
Well, yeah, and let's drill down on that for a minute, because we're not leaning on Walmart. We're leaning specifically on Walmart's stockholders. That's who would end up paying, who are largely Americans.
Apparently that's fine too.
Well, it's fine because you say Walmart stockholders and people think about, fat cats, the Walton family and so forth, until you realize that My guess is probably 50% of Americans own stock in Walmart.
Oh, I don't think that's right.
Well,
That's crazy.
I believe it's 60% of Americans own stock, either directly or indirectly. And if you own stock, I would be extremely surprised if somewhere in your portfolio you don't have shares of Walmart.
I would check, but I don't have a keyboard.
How is it that we're doing this over a computer and you don't have a keyboard?
It's taken a fair amount of work on my part, I'll tell you that for nothing. For crying out loud. But that, of course, brings us to the foolishness of the week, which is
James not having a keyboard.
without a keyboard. No. Ant, I want to draw our attention, or your attention maybe more to the point, to the fine town of Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Oh, we've talked about Johnstown in the past.
What do you know about Johnstown?
I know
Ant?
about Johnstown's flood tax.
Yep, still being applied.
Still being applied, and that flood was, if I'm not mistaken, it was the 1950s, if not earlier.
I think it was even earlier, wasn't it?
May have been earlier, but we talked about it years ago. And back then, we were saying this Johnstown tax that was supposedly imposed to rebuild Johnstown, and it's collected so much money over the years that you could have rebuilt Johnstown 3 times over, and yet the tax is still there.
It's a miracle, isn't it, how Johnstown is fine, and yet there's the tax.
Yeah.
Once a tax has been implemented, it's carved in stone. You don't get rid of it. But that's not what we're talking about today, Ant. What else you know about Johnstown?
Let's see. They've got the airport to nowhere. Is that correct?
Don't know, but that's not what we're talking about either.
There was some airport that they built there, subsidized with federal money. And as I recall, and this is not far back, this would have been in the early 2000s, maybe 2010s. They built this airport with federal money, and the federal money funded a flight maybe twice a day to Washington, D.C. At the time we reported on it, they had more TSA agents at that airport than they had customers.
That seems right. All right, I'm just going to cut to the chase here because
this is great. There's more.
We could do this all day long with Johnstown, apparently, but a kindergartner at Johnstown brought Jell-O shots to school and passed them out to her little friends.
Oh my God, that's so sad and so funny at the same time.
Yeah.
Many questions.
What the hell are they doing in Johnstown that kindergartners are scooping up Jell-O shots before they get on the bus?
Right, yeah. Where did they get it? How did they get it at that time of day? How did they get it into the classroom?
And
how long did it take the teacher to figure this out?
Well, there's literally no way this didn't come from parents.
Oh, yeah, right.
This stuff was in the refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kindergarten, for crying out loud. I myself didn't start drinking until the 3rd grade.
Well, all right. Now, in defense of the parents, you could see a situation where the parent made Jell-O shots and, oh my God, I've got to make the treat for the kid tomorrow, and makes other Jell-O as well because she already has the Jell-O because she was making Jell-O shots, and the kid gets them mixed up, or somebody gets them mixed up, takes the wrong one in. I can see that. That's an understandable error.
It's not going to work out that way.
Is there more?
I can guarantee you that that's not going to be the answer.
What's the answer?
The answer is that a parent left this in the fridge unattended, and the kid said, "Ooh, look, colors. I'll bring them to school."
So what happens? Do we know the details? The kid brings them to school, hands them out.
That's what we got. If it makes you feel any better, a 5th grader in Texas did it last month.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I could see that. What's coming, though, from these two, count them, 2 incidences over however many schools and multiple years we have, what's coming is a ban.
It'll be Tide Pods all over again.
School districts all across the country saying you may not bring Jell-O.
That's probably going to happen.
Hats off to Johnstown, PA, making the news again. This is a town of, I don't know what their population is, but I would guess it's somewhere underneath 20,000. Yeah,
to get to the top of everybody's newsfeed. It's kind of astonishing, really.
While we're on the topic, I want to remind listeners, we talked about Johnstown back in the day because there was this tax instituted many decades ago and it never went away, as taxes have a tendency to do. There was one tax at the time, and since then it is still the only tax I'm aware of that was instituted for a particular reason and was then subsequently repealed after that reason was no longer a thing. And this was a tax on telephone service to help fund the Spanish-American War. That tax was subsequently repealed after we're done financing the Spanish-American War, and it was finally repealed in the early 2000s.
Well,
when was the Spanish-American War, like 18-something?
ain't nothing perfect, Ant. This is just how it is.
For one-stop shopping for all things James and Ant, visit our website, wordsandnumbers.org. We give a special shout-out to our Patreon sponsors who help us keep the lights on. If you'd like to contribute, go to patreon.com/wordsandnumbers.
We have an equally ridiculous main topic today, Ant, and I know this isn't exactly in your wheelhouse, but I could probably walk you through some of it because, I don't know, I mean, how do you even start talking about something that's this asinine?
I'm going to let you introduce it. You sent me the video and I watched it and I'm perplexed. That's all I'll say.
And we're not going to be sharing that video with people in the show notes because I don't want you to be clicking through on that, making Kanye West more famous than he already is. He's written a song, I don't know if it's the official title, but it might as well be called Heil Hitler. What the hell is going on in the world that this kind of nonsense can bubble up to the surface? I mean, Ant, it wasn't too terribly long ago when I was saying things like, gee, nobody talks about Hitler in glowing terms. Why on earth do we talk about the Soviet Union in glowing terms?
Right.
And instead of dragging the Soviet Union down to Hitler, we've dragged Hitler up to the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
Well, let's give a little background, and I'll just say, you sent me the link, so I watched this thing, and I'm not a Kanye West fan. I'm not against him. It's just not my thing, right? But I'm watching this, and I'm surprised he's got this chorus of, people singing repeatedly, Heil Hitler. And the chorus are all black men. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Hitler was putting blacks in concentration camps simply because they were black, along with, the Jews and the Catholics and the whoever else. And I asked you, is this supposed to be ironic? Because I couldn't tell what the lyrics were about.
It is not ironic.
What's he thinking?
Well, I would hazard to guess that Kanye doesn't think much. The real question is, who's paying money for this? Who on earth heard that and said, I got to run out and buy that?
Yeah.
I got to go see Kanye on tour. Kanye should be shamed right off of every stage that he's ever been on. And yet, that's not happening. And it's bad enough that he wants to have a Nazi song. It's bad enough, right? But what's really atrocious is that people are giving him their attention. Not like we are today. I think this is more of a public service announcement. Although maybe you could make the case that even we shouldn't be talking about it because it just draws more attention to it. But I don't understand how people just fall in line with an obvious anti-Semite like this, and they don't stop to think, geez, maybe this isn't okay.
Is this, and again, I don't follow these things, but is it possible that his career was flaming out, and so he goes and does something like this just to generate the type of response that we're giving?
I mean, he does all kinds of horrible things. So I don't think I would say that it's likely that it was done as a career rejuvenation tactic.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a terrible person. You actually see him walking around with, I don't know if it's his wife or his girlfriend at this point, but he takes her out the house naked.
What?
She just kind of wanders around naked. And nobody stops and says, "Hey, Kanye, what's up with this?" These seem to be reasonable questions to me. And I would like to know when it became so acceptable to be an open anti-Semite again.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because I remember when anti-Semites knew enough to be embarrassed enough by their own beliefs that they kept them quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a little baffling, right? If you believe something, why are you embarrassed by it? But they were, and they knew better, and they held these idiotic beliefs anyway, so they kept them close to the chest. But not anymore. And I can't quite figure out how we got here. I mean, how is it that Jewish college students don't feel safe on campus anymore?
Mm-hmm.
And they shouldn't. Right? That's not an unreasonable thing for them to be saying. The climate is such that all kinds of people are paying a price for idiocy like Kanye's.
Mm-hmm.
So what's wrong with us, I guess, is the open question. This is an us problem, right? Kanye is one of us.
Yeah, we've become intolerant of each other.
And very callous.
Yeah, as if disagreeing with me, whoever me is somehow anathema. But all of that, I think, it's built on the presumption that everybody should think the same, want the same things, have the same aspirations, whatever it is. And if anybody disagrees with mine, there's something wrong with them. We've lost the sense that we can just have different opinions.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit because Kanye is not entitled to that opinion. He's not. That opinion was settled in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
That would be like saying we have to go back to segregation. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, you can have that opinion, but it doesn't mean it's at all respectable.
Right.
There's nothing good about these opinions, right? So some opinions are so stupid that they should be off the table.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who in Kanye's orbit is thinking, well, maybe we'll just see what happens?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody pulled him aside and said, "Hey, Kanye, don't do this.
Yeah.
This is a mistake," right? I don't know what to make of it. People have become so obnoxious and so callous towards one another. You can't talk about the Holocaust in this way and not be offensive. There's just no way.
Is it possible? I guess I've lived long enough that I've met a number of people who are powerful enough that the people around them are afraid to say no. They're afraid to contradict.
Like Donald Trump, for example.
Is it possible that Kanye is surrounded by a bunch of people like that? And so he says something no matter how off the wall, and they just say, "Oh, yeah, this is a great idea."
I think it is, but that doesn't answer the question of why he has fans who enable him. If my favorite performers put out this song, they would not be my favorite performers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They would never get $1 of my money again because this is beyond the pale. And yet, here we are. And I see people not exactly making excuses for Kanye, but not holding him to account either. Would you let one of your children get away with this?
Oh, no.
Yeah, not in a million years. And yet, Kanye, here we are. I think it says more about the place where we've gotten as a people, where we just can't be kind to each other anymore. There's no kindness at all.
Is it that, or is it that we seem to have lost all sense of shame? People don't seem to feel shame anymore.
No shame.
And I wonder if that comes from this push that we've saw for decades of accept people as they are, which there's a lot to be said for that. But to just blanket accept everything, that erases any need for shame, right?
That's right. There's a bunch of people out there who should never be accepted as they are.
Yeah.
And Kanye's one of them. I pick on him because he's so famous, right? He's such a big deal culturally. Frankly, I don't know why. I think he's a talentless hack, and he always has been. When I saw him try to sing Bohemian Rhapsody in front of the Glastonbury Festival, I wanted to gouge my ears out with chopsticks just to make the sound go away. So who's listening to this garbage in the first place is an open question. But who's listening to this racist garbage in the first place is a better question. Because that takes the value judgment of the music off the table. Now it's anti-Semitism. And yet, no big deal, right? No big deal.
Was this a song from a new album he's come out with or something?
Yeah, I believe it will be soon. I don't think his album is out yet, but I could be mistaken on that.
Okay, so then we could come back later on and ask, how did it do? I mean, there'll be dollars and cents attached to it.
It's already gotten tens of millions of views.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yes. Huh. Yeah, no, his fan base is lapping it up.
Mm-hmm.
So what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what to say about this. We've gotten to a point now where anti-Semitism is so recharged, so rejuvenated, that we are in a dangerous position. There's nothing good going to happen as a result of what we're seeing now. So how bad will it get is the open question.
One can accept what you're saying without having to go down the rabbit hole of, whether Jews have done well or badly or whatever it is, or talk about the business with the Palestinians. You don't have to go down that rabbit hole at all. You simply ask the question, what happens when it becomes okay to take a group of people and say it's okay to make fun of them, it's okay to denigrate them, it's okay to exclude them? Okay, that's the first group of people. Who's next?
I find the whole thing to be incredibly sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's just incredibly sad.
Yeah.
What do we tell our Jewish friends? Oh, I didn't want to speak up, I didn't want to get anybody upset with me. That's what you say when you don't speak up. That's right. What you're saying. That it's more important to you to have a calm life than to speak the obvious truth. And that's shameful. I mean, I don't know how I get to be the voice of a new moral majority.
A propriety.
I don't know how we got here, but here we are. I'm just befuddled by it. I'm horrified that everybody didn't stand up and say, Kanye, you got to go. Because I wouldn't let him in my house. Would you? It's a blanket rule. Nobody who says Heil Hitler is welcome in my house. I find that to be a rather unremarkable assertion.
Wasn't that salute actually outlawed in Germany?
Yes, you can't do that in Germany.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that bad. It's against the law. Yeah.
They're still dealing with their shame.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they should be anymore, right? Almost nobody alive had anything to do with it.
Right.
I'm loath to hold people responsible for what other generations of those people did. This is the same argument that gets you reparations here.
Right.
In a place where no one was ever enslaved and no one ever enslaved anyone else, why would we need reparations?
So I'm with you that no one alive today in Germany likely should be held accountable. But by the same token, we shouldn't forget. And I think when it comes to so many things, social, political, economic, it seems to be the case that every 20 years, the new generation has to relearn the lessons that the previous one learns with such pain.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because, World War II ended about 80 years ago.
Yeah.
And I can remember periods where people obviously forgot.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it. I mean, look, we were born 20-ish years after World War II. So, we weren't that removed from it.
Right.
I remember, going to high school and Holocaust victims showed up to talk to us,
mm-hmm.
showed us the tattoo on her arm, right? These kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
But we've gotten further and further away from that now. And the people who can remember anything at all about it are few and far between. And somehow now we're all back to the same stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to think about economics, and it's the same kind of story, isn't it? We're back to mercantilism now.
Right.
Well, I mean, how many times do you have to play it out?
We got rid of the Smoot-Hawley tariffs when? I want to say the early 70s, perhaps? Maybe earlier than that?
Way earlier than that.
But same thing. We've forgotten. And so now we've got the same business all over again.
And not only that, you can think about all kinds of other things too, right? Communism.
Mm-hmm.
Why does communism come roaring back every 20 years?
Right, right.
It's exactly as stupid as an idea now as it ever was.
Yep.
And yet we get a bunch of young people who want to extol the virtues of communism all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. What makes you think you're going to be in charge, young person? You're going to be working the fields. They all say, all the young people who want communism are convinced that they're going to be part of the ruling elite.
The thing I find amazing is that the people who want communism are people who have never lived under it. The people who have lived under it want nothing to do with it.
I've said it 1,000 times, right? Not real communism is far more dangerous than not real capitalism.
Right. Yes.
Give me not real capitalism any day of the week. It lifts people out of poverty and misery. Not real communism, on the other hand, kills them.
Yeah.
Imagine how effective real communism would be. I don't know how we ended up here, where all of these evil things from the past are just bubbling up to the surface again, as if we never talked about it before, as if it's all a new idea. I just don't get it.
Yeah, and I think to come back to where we started, people aren't going to learn from the past if they aren't willing to entertain ideas that conflict with their preconceptions. That's a trick we're very bad at right now, entertaining things that conflict with our preconceptions.
And getting worse.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's precious little grace, right? There's no benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's just at each other all the time. And then enter Kanye with something this stupid. Well, now it's going to be worse.
No.
Right? Because, there's nothing good about him. This is a terrible person saying terrible things. And I wonder how he looks at Jewish people having said these things. I mean, is he that stupid that he doesn't know to be ashamed of himself? I have a hard time believing that. But he might not. He might be too stupid. I don't know. What do you make of it, Ant? What are we going to do about all this nonsense? Probably just nothing, right?
I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing before, which is not listening to him.
Well, I've been very good at that over the years myself, so I'll probably also do that. But I wish he would go away. And that's all the time we've got this week on Words and Numbers. Until next time,
send us email, wordsandnumberspodcast@gmail.com.
Try to be nice to one person who doesn't deserve it. Till next week, can't take it easy.
See you next week, James.